Okay. The reason I picked third grade, as I told a couple of y'all beforehand, is because you have PE first, and they wiggle around all day, probably in their seats, they can't sit still. Well, this is to include movement into your classroom somehow, way or another. It can also allow for concentration and just to keep them on subject. Give them a break, let them move, and then turn around and get back to learning what they're learning. So here's the table of contents. Little research when it comes to movement. Of course, the 6 ways on how to include movement into your classroom, and then some tools for including movement into your classroom as well. Okay. The objective for the presentation is to learn about research, implementation, and tools to get you started with movement in your classroom. This will keep the students engaged in what they're learning while incorporating physical activity and movement into the lesson. Okay, perception of movement in the classroom. The theory of learning styles has immensely been characterized as a legend by researchers. So trying to figure out if the students are kinesthetic learners is quite possibly a waste of your time. What will be worth your time is using the movement in your classroom with every learner due to the large amount of research backing that up. Okay? All right, here's some research. I'll try to summarize it. I know it's a lot. I'm not going to sit here and read all of it, so I'll read a couple. According to the CDC, movement integration is an interdisciplinary method of teaching that incorporates physical activity into academic content areas, strengthening both sides of learning while also contributing to students' recommended total of at least 60 minutes of daily physical activity. In other words, the integration of movement helps the student learn and stay physically active. It also talks about gestures. This is going to be incorporated with songs and movement portion of one of the activities. Gestures can change speakers' thoughts. Encouraging gesture thus has the potential to change how students, patients, witnesses, etc. think about a problem and, as a result, alter the course of learning, therapy, and an interchange. Okay, so even the addition of some gestures can have an immense impact on the way in which students remember material. I'll go ahead and read it. Is that okay? I can read the third? Okay, all right. Physical activity can have both immediate and long-term benefits on academic performance. Almost immediately after engaging in physical activity, children are better able to concentrate on classroom tasks, which can enhance learning. Over time, as children engage developmentally appropriate physical activity, their improved physical fitness can have additional positive effects on academic performance in mathematics, reading, and writing. This means any kind of physical activity can have a positive effect on what we're learning. Okay, here are the 6 different movements: total physical response, a snapshot, simulations, songs with movement, virtual and augmented reality. The only reason I added that one is because I know that some of y'all have iPads, and this is actually pretty cool. And then, of course, brain breaks. Y'all probably heard of a couple of these. I'm not sure if you have or not. Total physical response. It's a method of teaching language or vocabulary concepts. Once again, the reason I picked third grade as well is because of, y'all still teach vocabulary, correct? Is that like a big part of your curriculum? Okay. So teaching language or vocabulary concepts by using physical movement to react to verbal input. The process mimics the way that infants learn their first language, and it reduces student inhibitions and lowers stress. The purpose of TPR is to create a brain link between speech and action to boost language and vocabulary learning. Got a little short video. There's a video with every one of these, so y'all can kind of see it in action as well. We're not going to watch the entire thing, just a minute, about a minute or
Total
so.
physical response is a really great way to teach vocabulary to students. It forces them to think very abstractly about language, and so they have to use their bodies to move and define language, and it forces them to solidify it.
No. Let's read the definition.
always important to start with a simple student-friendly definition. After you have that, they need to come up with a physical movement that they create themselves.
How can we make our bodies show this definition? We make something pretty. How can we use our bodies? Oh, look at what Jesus just tried. Show us.
If it's something student-made, they have ownership over it, and so they are more likely to remember it that way. You make it a game, you have them respond to your prompt by pointing to them and saying, okay, give me the word decorate. And they have to orally say the definition and also act out, or the physical response has to be done at the same time. It's great because with enough consistency, you can have some of these groups learning 60, 70 words in a year. It's a really powerful thing for...
Just something cool. They actually really use this. It's really for bilingual kids, especially ones that have not really learned that much English. But you could use it for vocabulary words, for like depending on what they are and how to use them. Oh no! Let me just do it again. Okay, there we go. All right, Snapshot or Tableau. I think that's how you say it. I'm actually, to be honest with you, I don't know how to say it. I just put Snapshot up there because that's the other way of saying it. So students create a snapshot of what is being learned with their bodies. So for instance, if you're doing, the way I would use it, of course, would be with PE. So show me a jump shot, and they'll just hold it there. Something like that with a word, or it could even be history. Like how did a soldier stand, or something like that, and then show you. All right, this is a short video as well.
It's a concept, and they have to figure out a way, using only their bodies and maybe a couple of props, how to go demonstrate that concept in front of the other students. It's just like if you open a book and you see a picture, you guys make the picture. You cannot talk, you cannot move, okay? You cannot move. No, you have to be still. While the students are at their desks watching, they're figuring out what it is that the students at the front of the room are doing. I think it can be really challenging for the students to know what it is that the other students are creating. If it was all the terms we've learned in class, it's just overwhelming. So I've created this word bank here, or this term list, so that they have a better idea of what it is that the other students are doing. V.
I guess it's a zero action thing on hours.
Is that right? All right, good job. That wasn't really difficult. I like Tableau because it makes the students really think, do I understand this concept well enough that I can demonstrate it without writing anything and without using my words? It's really outside.
There we go. Okay. Simulations is next. Simulations are instructional scenarios where the learner is placed in a world defined by the teacher. They represent a reality within which students interact. The teacher controls the parameters of this world and uses it to achieve the desired instructional results. Students experience the reality of the scenario and gather meaning from it. So this could definitely be used for history. Like create a World War II scene or something like that.
There are a lot of subjects that students learn about from kindergarten all the way through college that we could teach in some really interesting ways. So for example, let's imagine you were doing a unit on the Amazonian rainforest in biology class. One way you could teach that material is by piling all your students onto an airplane, flying them down to the Amazonian rainforest, and letting them actually learn about it by catching animals, dissecting them, watching them in their natural habitat, and learning about them that way. It would be really interesting and really authentic and really engaging and completely unfeasible. We can't load students on airplanes like that and fly them down to a dangerous area just to learn about how the rainforest works. But what we can do is bring them that experience through their computers, through something like Amazon Trail, which is a game or a simulation y'all might be familiar with. So what we can do is we can use computers to construct simulations of the kinds of environments or experiences we want students to have, and let them engage with it that way. This can be powerful in a number of different ways. It's very authentic. It lets them see not only the content we want them to learn, but also potentially how people researching that content actually work in their day-to-day life. Lets them see what is it like to actually research biology down in the Amazon, or what is it like to capture marine animals and investigate them as a marine biologist. It's also powerful because it can be very empowering to let students explore things on their own. They kind of get to drive their own learning and drive their own investigation, which aligns very nicely with some other things we've talked about so far in this class. So simulation-based learning is a great way to bring authentic and engaging learning experiences to students through the power of their computers. So in this morsel, we're going to talk about how.
All right, next, songs with movement. This is kind of common sense. So just using music and another way to teach concepts to your students, which the big thing here is to incorporate movement. Now it's a morning song that this third grade class does every day. And it's, you ever heard Juju on that beat or whatever? That's what this is. Oh, well, it's unavailable. Never mind. Okay. But they just incorporate, what they do is they play the song and she incorporated different words to the song. That way they can, have like a morning type warm up when they get to their homeroom or your first period or something like that. Just incorporating music with songs. I hate that that's not going to play. Okay. This is by far my favorite. Virtual and augmented reality. Virtual reality is kind of difficult, of course, because you actually have to have a like glasses encased in something. They have this thing called Google Explorations, and what they are is you can get like a ton of them and bring them to class and put them on, and it actually centers you into a specific world. So kind of like simulations in a sense, but just with virtual reality. Augmented reality, y'all can definitely do. It's virtual reality in a sense, but you can see it through a device. So it's not, you actually don't have to wear anything. Pokemon Go is a big thing. I know that y'all probably don't play it. I play it just because I'm a nerd. But it uses augmented reality. For instance, if you try to catch a Pokemon, you could turn your camera on and you can actually see it in our reality. It's just not there. That's what augmented reality is. This is actually really cool. Y'all kind of get the picture. I'm not going to sit here and hold y'all any longer with that. It's just something cool to incorporate technology into your classroom along with movement. This brain breaks. It allows the students to take some time to re-energize and focus. I know a lot of kids, especially probably here at a magnet school, their brains probably get tired after learning all that material over and over and over again. So this just gives them a break to do something physically active to kind of re-energize themselves.
Okay, thanks Ryan and Mike for volunteering. And this is toe tapping brain break. So what you're going to do is toe tap once your right feet. Okay, and now you're going to toe tap 3 times your left feet. And now 2 times your right feet again. Okay, you're going to do that pattern over and over again. 1, 3, 2. And sometimes it's easy to say it out loud. Say 1 and then 3. And as fast as they can. Well done, great. All right, everybody stand up.
Right, so that's pretty much
the toe tapping
just doing some type of physical movement to take your mind off of learning for a minute and kind of re-energize yourself. And yes, you're right. 3rd graders probably would not be able to do that.
I could just think kids karate.
That is very, very, very true. All right, this is it right here. Just some tools for including movement in your classroom. Don't make it complicated. Don't try to add a component, a movement to every concept being learned. You know, the students, if you do something over and over again, especially I've learned this in PE. If you do something over and over again, kids kind of get tired of it. It doesn't matter what it is. Play basketball every day. Eventually, some kids are not going to want to play basketball every single day. So just don't make it too complicated. Kind of mix it up. Include your students' input. So ask the students if there's any type of movement concepts they might want to do for a brain break or something like that. Let them be creative. Using retrieval practice. Do not learn all the movements at once. Space them out over time and learn a little day by day. Have the students practice different movements daily by only memory. And then, of course, gestures. I kind of went over this before. Plays a big role in communication at a variety of different time spans. Speaking at the moment and learning language over developmental time, and then creating language over shorter and longer periods. When applying these concepts, try and use gestures with young students to help them learn and communicate. And that's it. Thanks. I appreciate it. I know. I really do.